In a recent video, I talked about how we all share one mind. It's one consciousness, and we're all a part of it. We're all a part of Indra's net, the Indian concept for this. And then individually, we're like different channels where we're channeling these thoughts and messages that come from this one mind. They're not sourced in us. They're not inside our own head. We're not the source. In the same way that a radio, if sound's coming out of a radio, you wouldn't say it's sourced in the radio. The radio is a channel for the larger fields of information and energy. Inside this field of mind, there's a lot of noise, a lot of static, a lot of chatter in this one mind of ours. And that's the accumulation of generations of distortion, of belief systems from our families, from society, that don't have anything to do with reality. This noise is basically fear. And fear itself is a distortion. It's like a shadow on a wall. It's not right. It doesn't actually reflect reality. So all fear is a lie. All fear is a story about a moment, about what's happening. It's not inherent in what's happening. So when we talk about fight, flight, freeze, and fawn responses as being fear responses, that's not quite right. Those are natural instincts, natural responses in the body to a threat. So a threat comes in, the body freezes. When the threat leaves in other animals, the freeze response leaves. It's this natural resolution, the energy leaves the body, and the body recovers. With human animals, we've been taught to override this natural response. So we're told if we freeze up because we don't want to do something, that we have to do it. We have to go to school. We have to play with that kid. And therefore that energy gets trapped. And alongside it comes a story that maybe I'm a bad kid or there's something wrong with me that I don't want to go to school. So we don't have a resolution and we have this static buildup. These fear stories could be considered stories, codes, programs, spells. It doesn't matter what we call them. They're always untrue and they're always shared. They're not your beliefs or my beliefs or my fears or your fears. They're our fears. And 100% of them aren't real. They whittle down to stories about ourselves, others, life in the world, and then these kind of floating abstract ones, which I'll talk about. I want to expose them all, list them all, and debunk them all, because none of them have anything to do with reality. For the ones about ourselves and others, I'm going to list those here, but I'm going to break those down further in the Substack writing. That link, the information about that is in my description box on this video. But I'll go into the ones about life in the world and these abstract ones here. I want us to see that they're all shared and to see through them. That's what healing is. It's to wake up from our thoughts and then to heal the energy block in the body from when those natural responses weren't able to naturally resolve themselves. And I think of that as like adjusting the knob on the radio dial and opening the antenna on the radio so that more clear signals can move through our channels instead of the noise that we're used to. But in seeing them all laid out and seeing that we share them all, we can take off this big belief that it's us, that we are the problem. It's that we have a mind that needs some cleaning. And none of it is any of our fault, but it is our responsibility to wake up and heal our side of the street, our portion of this mind. Okay, so I'm going to list the ones about ourselves and others, and know that these are kind of the core thoughts or beliefs, and then there's a lot that kind of, sprout out from these. But if you trace it back to the root, it's usually one of these. This is what I've seen in over 25 years in the field of psychology. If you have other root ones that you find, let me know. We believe that we are bad or wrong morally in some way, that there's something wrong with us, that we're like broken in some way. We'll believe we're not worth anything or not good enough, that we're not lovable, that we don't belong, that we're outcasts or weird in some way. that we're broken or sick, we're stupid or dumb, gross or disgusting, useless or without purpose, too slow, too fast, too fat, too skinny, too tall, too short, etc. We're ugly, we're incapable or unable or a failure, we're too masculine, too feminine, not masculine enough, not feminine enough. And of course, these go for other people as well. We get this projected onto us, we project it onto ourselves or others. Again, shadows on a wall, nothing but projections, none of them having anything to do with reality. Here are the ones about life or the world. We'll believe that the world is scary or dangerous or hard or harsh, that it's a struggle, a crapshoot, or like luck of the draw, unfair, impossible, a puzzle in some way, evil or dark, that the whole thing is survival of the fittest, or that the whole thing is a problem to solve. It's a burden or an albatross. It's hell. It's an obligation. It's a duty. I want to say, I'm not saying the world isn't any of these things. I'm not denying the horrors that exist, that you've been through, that others have been through. I've called the world many of these things many times, having witnessed just horrendous human behavior and deep human suffering. What I am saying is the world is upside down because we keep believing these things about it and these things about ourselves. We keep accepting these projections, not cleaning them up, and then projecting it back. And it's a Rorschach world. It's a projection screen. So if we stop projecting it being these things, it stops reflecting that back to us. And because it's one mind, we need to do that collectively. We have to start individually. And we can start by, in this moment, seeing that none of these descriptors of the world is here right now. There's just clothes and a screen and a table and a wall. That's all that's happening. And the worst that might be happening in this moment is a pain or a feeling. But even that pain or feeling doesn't have any meaning attached to it. It doesn't. There isn't a scary story on it in reality. It's just a feeling. And that's the worst of it. Which brings me to the final abstract fears that people tend to have. One of them is pain or feeling in general. We'll be convinced that it's just going to kill us, that pain cannot be felt, that feeling has to be avoided at all cost. And it's a cosmic joke because I have a blog post called The Strangest Pleasure. There's an enormous relief in finally meeting that one thing that you're sure is going to destroy you. That pain, that fear, that feeling, the closer you get to it, all you're going to find is that natural resolution, like the animal, where the energy finally gets to move through your system. It's the relief you've been looking for. That goes for the other abstract fears, like the void, or silence, or nothingness, or vastness. This expansiveness, this pure source, the endlessness of who we really are, is anything but scary. When we actually go touch into it, when we feel what that is, there's an endless nourishment and soothing and relaxation and calm and connected feeling that happens as a result. It's nothing to be afraid of. It was always a lie. So that very thing you're afraid of, if you look right at it, you're going to find that it might literally be your best friend. The other abstract things we're afraid of are being alone. That's very similar to these other two. If we go meet that feeling in our system that we've been avoiding, that's not leaving ourselves alone anymore. And that feeling of aloneness that we thought we were going to get from somebody else feeling into that feeling for us or resolving that for us goes away. We do it for ourselves. We don't leave ourselves alone. We don't feel lonely. And if we touch into that vastness of our larger self, there's no way you can feel alone. You realize you couldn't be alone if you tried. You've never been separate. It's all shared. So aloneness, again, is just this abstract fear that has nothing to do with reality. And lastly, we'll be afraid of death. Again, an abstract idea. It's just a projection of what death is, when in reality, we basically die. The body is almost dead every night in deep sleep. And we love deep sleep. The pure awareness doesn't die. It's always there. And the body gets this deep rest. Death is nothing but a concept. And really, the moment is just recycled. So if we strip ourselves of these fears, if we are willing to look for ourselves right in the face, right at that very thing that we're afraid of, we're going to find that there's only peace on the other side. And each time we do that, we clean up part of this collective mind and open those antennas up for really beautiful thoughts and creative expression and the energetic flow that is your birthright, that's natural, that's so fulfilling, is yours to have.